Good evening. Welcome from the Berkeley Heights, New Providence, Summit League of Women Voters. We have with us this evening 5 candidates vying for 2 seats on the Berkeley Heights Township Council. Before introducing the candidates and explaining the format for the evening, I have an opening statement that I must read about the League of Women Voters of New Jersey. The League of Women Voters of New Jersey is a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Elections and voting are core concerns for the League of Women Voters. Year in and year out, leagues are committed to providing fact-based information about issues and the positions of candidates take on those issues to help voters make their own decisions and participate in the electoral process. All the election information you need can be found at www.vote411.org. In addition, the table in the back, there are 2 New Jersey state questions on your ballot. There's information about those ballot questions in the table on the back, including information about our Vote 411. The League of Women Voters never supports or opposes candidates for office or political parties. Any use of the League name or of footage from the Candidates Night in campaign materials, literature, or advertising of any kind, including the internet, cable, or television, that has not been authorized by the League of Women Voters. As a courtesy to the candidates, please turn off all cell phones and other electronic devices, and please refrain from taking photographs during this Candidates Night. The students of Governor Livingston High School are videotaping this event. You can view the recorded event on FiOS Channel 47 or Comcast Channel 34, and it will also be on YouTube, GLHS TV. Now, on to the format. Each candidate will give a brief opening statement. After the opening statement, I will ask each candidate to reply to League-generated questions which they were given prior to this evening. After the League-generated questions, we will have time for questions from the audience. If you'd like to submit a question, please raise your hand, and a card on which you can write that question will be given to you. To submit your question, just raise your hand and someone will pick up the card. All candidates will have the opportunity to answer each question. Each candidate will be given a set time to answer each question. Responses will be timed by a person sitting up front. After the question and answer period, the candidates will each give a brief closing statement. The candidates are Jean Kingsley, Edmund Tom Mashevsky, Alvaro Medeiros, Susan Pogue, and John Sincaglia. We will begin with the opening statement of John Sincaglia.
And students from GL that are here making it possible for this event to be taped. It's worth pointing out that this great facility we have here was not so nice about 11 years ago, but the Board of Education on which I serve made the decision to invest in upgrading this auditorium, and with the help of many people, including the late Ken Stiefel, for whom it's named, we're able to enjoy events like this. I'm running for a seat on the Township Council because I believe I have the experience, expertise, and vision that Berkeley Heights needs. I had a successful career as a teacher and then a school business administrator. I served over 12 years on the Board of Education and was selected as both president and vice president of the board during my tenure. I chaired the Finance Committee for 10 years and helped craft the annual district budget, something that was an integral part of my professional career. As a business administrator, I developed 21 budgets, and at the time, under the law, those budgets had to be approved by the voters, and 19 of them weren't done. I know what to look for. I know how to prepare budgets. I know what's essential, and I'm ever mindful of the community's ability to pay. One of my post-retirement jobs was working for the state of New Jersey as the business administrator for Morris County, where I personally was responsible for reviewing and approving 40 different school district budgets. There were numerous occasions where I had to tell districts to reduce or eliminate items, even though they were below the budget cap. I've lived here for almost 30 years and never regretted picking Berkeley Heights as a place to live with my family. Our town needs people with a proven track record to be responsible for the affairs that local government is empowered to handle. My running mate, Jean Kingsley, has amply demonstrated her commitment and expertise to doing that the past 6 years. I have a proven record of public service, both professionally and as an elected school board member. I know how to get things done. I know the tough questions that need to be asked and the collaborative efforts it takes to make things happen. I am not beholden to anyone. I will do what I believe is right for our town, and that means listening to you, what you have to say before making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kingsley?
Okay. Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and all of you for being here tonight in this evening's program. I'm Jean Kingsley. My husband Ed and I have been residents in Berkeley Heights for almost 23 years. We have 4 children and have found this town a wonderful place to raise a family and make lifelong friendships. I first ran for elected office 6 years ago. I wanted to get involved in new ways by sharing more of my skill set with our community. I'm a CPA and a finance professional with over 25 years of experience in the financial services industry, with responsibilities that did include developing and overseeing multi-million-dollar budgets, implementing large financial systems, and leading teams that took a multi-million-dollar company public. Together, we have worked hard to implement a long-term vision for our town, to maintain its affordability, address our aging infrastructure and facilities, and create policies and programs that position us for the future. Most importantly, we're a thriving community that embraces diversity in people and thought, a place where all voices are welcome and people treat each other with dignity and respect. It has always been my goal to work with the people of our community, and this means all of us. Positive change always starts with people and not political affiliation. People who together talk, listen, create, strategize, develop budgets, and find alternative ways to pay for things. And together, we get the job done. We have accomplished so much: built new parks, sidewalks, streetscapes, enhanced our playing fields, introduced new community traditions like the Winter Walk and the Restaurant Week, welcomed new businesses, and supported those who have been steadfast to our town. We've collaborated with the Board of Ed to share services and improve facilities, and we've worked with our not-for-profits to encourage volunteerism and keep community strongholds like the YMCA and our community pool. And we have done these things together without political and regards for politics. Our new municipal complex will have a home for our senior citizens, our police department, recreation programs, and a new state-of-the-art library that serves citizens of all ages. Our capital improvement plan for fixing the roads is ahead of schedule. Together, we have made substantial progress, and we can continue this positive momentum. I look forward from hearing your questions and discussing ideas for our future tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Mashevsky.
Hello, my name is Tom Macheski. Many of you know me from last election, where I was the one standing outside of Dunkin' Donuts for the entire summer campaigning. I'd like to thank all of you that came out and voted for me. My campaign is based on 3 main pillars: honesty, transparency and communication, and being the only fiscal conservative on this stage. Allow me to quickly go over each one. Honesty. I believe that without honesty, our political differences or differences of opinion don't even matter. If the people of Berkeley Heights aren't being told the truth, it doesn't matter what political affiliation anyone is. When I started this campaign, I wanted to emphasize that it was honesty first. There are many in this town from all ends of the political spectrum who believe in what I stand for because of this. Transparency and communication. After honesty, the town government needs to be transparent and needs to communicate to the residents that it represents. With honest, two-way communication with no political twists, the community can feel more included, knowledgeable, trusting, and accepting. If secrecy breeds corruption, then transparency, communication, and inclusion breathes ethics. Being a fiscal conservative, what being a fiscal conservative means to me is to have an understanding that people would prefer to make decisions on how to spend their hard-earned money rather than be forced to allow someone else to make those decisions. I would even take a step further and say that it causes harm to people and can put people in dire situations when they don't have enough left to take care of themselves. I believe it is the town's role to do for the town what wouldn't make sense for the people to do by themselves, while respecting the value of the residents' money and their right to keep it. This is a very pertinent election for anyone who cares about our small town feel. I would be against moving forward with any project without assurances that there was already a proper traffic study completed and that it was proven to me that it wouldn't cause any additional issues with the traffic. I have been a fiscal advocate for Berkeley Heights for about 1.5 years now. I believe there is room for improvement when it comes to the constant increase of property taxes. Last year, I ran a very successful campaign rallying the taxpayers of Berkeley Heights against the massive expenditure for the new municipal building.
Okay,
This
Mr.
year's town
Mr.
council-
Mashevsky, thank you very much.
$31 million, thank you.
And next we have Mr. Medeiros.
Thank you. My name is Alvaro Medeiros, and I'm running for town council so that I can make a positive impact on the direction this town takes. I grew up nearby, and my wife Amalia and I settled here 23 years ago and raised 2 children, both of whom were educated in the public schools here and both of whom are now pursuing a college career in engineering. I've worked at AT&T for over 25 years. Prior to that, I worked at a small private manufacturer where I worked my way up through the ranks to running their Western operations. I am at present an assistant vice president at AT&T, responsible for almost $1 billion in revenue. Through hard work, persistence, and performance, I've delivered results in 2 separate careers and have been successful in 2 different types of businesses. I've been a frequent volunteer. In this town, I volunteer with the Boy Scouts of America as a member of the Troop Committee of Troop 368, and also as a quartermaster with the GL Marching Band. I'm interested and am an advocate of public leadership. I believe that leadership matters, that decisions made by leaders have a considerable impact on us all, and that government can be a force for good. I want to be at the table of governance when decisions are made in this town. As a member of the Berkeley Heights Town Council, I want to improve the engagement of the public through more proactive communication and greater access to town council. I want to focus more of our attention on the downtown with public-private partnerships and emulate the success of our immediate neighbors. And I want to drive improvements that create improvement in the quality of life, from well-paved streets to safer street crossings and nicer playgrounds. Amalia and I were fortunate to settle in a place where we've enjoyed great neighbors, a caring community, great schools, and a safe and secure place to live and raise a family. It's a great town, but we can do better. I have the skills, creativity, and willingness to work hard on behalf of others, and as a leader of the town, I will work hard to ensure the very best for this township. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pogue?
Last but not least, good evening, I'm Susan Pogue, and I want to start with a story about a man I met on my first day out canvassing. He told me in 15 years no candidate has ever come to his door, and then he asked me, "What makes you better than your opponents?" And I replied, "I never said I was better, just different." I liked that answer, he told me, and he pledged his support. And as I go door to door to meet and greet people, the most common thread that I hear is how they're looking for change. While I have not served in a political capacity before, I bring a set of skills that will serve me well. My first job out of college was in sales, and I learned how to speak with and listen to people, a skill that served me well as I moved into my second career. I've been an educator here in Berkeley Heights for 16 of my 23 years, and I made the very conscious decision to serve the students in my own community. As a classroom teacher, I've served on a leadership role on grade level and on various committees. I also served on the negotiation team where I learned the process of negotiation. I have written and received over $20,000 in grant monies for my building. I was recruited by the New Jersey Department of Education to serve as a master teacher for the STEM Institute, and as a winner of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, I had the opportunity to spend a week in Washington working with teachers from all over the nation. These experiences, from local to national, have provided me with the exceptional opportunities to work with others towards common goals. The common goal of the residents in a town is to make the town better, but better looks different to different people. I love my town, but it pains me to see so many empty storefronts, pothole-ridden roads, unkept fields and park paths, and many garbage haulers lumbering through our streets. I worry about the ability of our services, schools, and roads to keep up with an influx of people that the new housing projects will bring to town. And for these reasons, I decided to get involved and be part of the change I want to see. At the beginning of each school year, I survey the parents to give me 3 phrases to describe their child. Here are 3 about me: passionate, hardworking, lifelong learner.
Thank you, Ms. Pogue. Now to the league-generated questions. What does transparency in government mean to you? Describe a specific case that illustrates that there was transparency. What steps would you take to guarantee transparency to the voters? Or describe a specific case that illustrates there was a lack of transparency. How would you have remedied the situation? We will begin with Mrs. Kingsley.
To me, transparency is a critical component of trust. If you don't trust me, then you're not going to communicate with me. Over the past 6 years, as a town council member, I have worked hard to earn your trust, and I believe I have it. My view as a council member has always been that a well-informed public is in everyone's best interest. Given the significant issues facing the town council these past couple of years, my mantra has been communicate, communicate, communicate. And working with the volunteer members of the Town Communications Committee, we have developed a number of information-related tools, many of which leverage our new and emerging technologies in an attempt to help our residents stay informed. These include updating the township website, e-alerts that push the township information out to residents, swift 911 alerts, a township Facebook page, the live streaming of town council meetings, and recently establishing the Be Heard program to inform residents about emerging town issues and reach out to local residents via online surveys to gauge their interests. How we've approached communicating about the municipal complex is a good example of our transparency in action. For decades, our township has been faced with aging and inadequate municipal facilities. Since being elected to the town council, we've embarked on a comprehensive due diligence process to analyze the viability of designing and constructing a new municipal complex, including optimizing its location and consolidating services for maximum cost effectiveness. I'm a CPA by training, and to me, money matters. Cost matters, and understanding who pays for it matters. This means an inclusive process, and as part of this inclusive process, we held 19 public meetings over 3.5 years to obtain the input of our citizens, hear their ideas, and listen to their needs. As a direct result of resident input, the current town hall location will remain, and several modifications were made to plans for the building and site. We asked and we listened, and our new municipal complex is the result of a collaborative partnership with our residents. We wanted to address all the residents' needs, and we believe the new design does just that. Ensuring our residents are informed about town council issues and initiatives is essential to our success. Thank you.
Mr. Mashevsky?
I believe that transparency alone is not enough. It is not enough to just let people request documents, and sometimes they don't even let us request these documents. When I refer to open government, I discuss transparency and communication and inclusion. I think a truly open, participatory, representative government needs great communication for the residents to be and feel included. Again, I'm the most pro-transparency candidate on the stage with a record that supports it. In fact, the criticism some have of me is that I'm too transparent. Here are my accomplishments regarding transparency and communication. I wrote an ordinance which I'll be submitting prior to the election called the Berkeley Heights Sunshine Act. I have pioneered live streaming the town council meeting and other public meetings, proving that it could be done cheaply and easily. This is prior to the town being able to do it. I have also created an outlet for open political discussions on Facebook. That group now has about 2,000 members that can openly read about and debate town politics. I have used the tools provided to me by state mandate to access public information that lies hidden at town hall and made it public. On the other hand, Gene Kingsley's record for transparency, or lack thereof, is also clear. Gene Kingsley took part in the creation of an ordinance to limit the recording of public meetings by the public. Gene Kingsley led the charge to close committee meetings to the public. Gene Kingsley denied a public reading of the Berkeley Heights Sunshine Act. Gene Kingsley's idea of transparency is to spend tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars to have the mayor push his own political propaganda via the mayor's roundtable, which is basically just an interview with pre-planned softball questions and answers. The mayor has even directly used that to show to intervene in elections, stating clearly inaccurate information to deliberately inform, seemingly deliberately inform misinformed voters, and using it as a campaign tool. Gene Kingsley seems to look at the residents
Thank
as
you, Mr.
annoyances.
Mashevsky. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Medeiros?
To me, transparency in government is the essence of good governance and the form of government that we stand by in this country. What I envision as a hallmark of transparency is willing and proactive communications with the public. When I first moved to Berkeley Heights, I used to receive a township newsletter that I read faithfully to understand what was going on in town. I didn't have to sign up for it or find it on a link on the town website. I haven't seen the township proactively provide its citizens information since, and the relatively recent effort to improve communications on the redevelopment plan are too late, and for most people that I've spoken to about it. Every effort should be made to ensure the community knows what decisions are being made and what issues are being decided. Proactive communications can range from a monthly emailed or even postage-mailed newsletter to more broadly adopted social media such as Facebook. It can take the form of council members that are clearly identified as such and are frequently available to the community where the community gathers, to electronic signage that reminds everyone of a town council meeting or a planning board meeting. Whichever form it takes, the goal is to be sure that as much of the community as possible is informed in ways that as many people as possible are comfortable with it. Thank you.
Ms. Pogue?
Thank you. So to piggyback a little bit on what Mr. Medeiros was saying, I think we need to get into the 21st century of using social media, Twitter, Facebook, but Twitter in a helpful way, not a hurtful way. I do remember the township newsletter as well, and I looked forward to getting that information. I think there's not enough push-out communication. It's too much of the residents having to go to the website, and that little sign at the corner of Plainfield and Springfield just isn't enough. So I don't want to repeat what you were saying, but it's the same sort of thing, more of a push-out than having the residents have to go to the website to find information. So newsletters, Facebook, Twitter, and getting the information out there. And I think also the money that is spent on the mayor's roundtable is not a two-way communication. That's one-way communication, and we need to hear from our residents. Weekend town hall meetings also, not just for big projects that are going on, but just communication between or among all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Mr. Singhaglia.
Transparency in government means that the elected and appointed officials are making decisions and carrying out those decisions in a manner that's visible to the public. That means strict compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, which demands that any governing body or appointed body discussions take place where and when the public has an opportunity to attend. There are exceptions to that law that include discussions about contract negotiations, security and safety matters, litigation, and several other subjects. That law is not anything new. It's been in existence since the 1970s, and I, as the CFO of school districts, as well as a Board of Ed member, am well acquainted with its requirements. Essentially, everything that must be considered can only be done when the council's in public session, except for those items that are specifically noted by law and clarified by court decisions. Now, a good example of transparency was the significant outreach that occurred when the council first began promulgating the redevelopment, particularly the plans to replace the municipal complex, police station, and library. A well-publicized series of 5 meetings were held in this auditorium, with every meeting focusing on a different aspect of the plan. And these meetings were very well attended. Some of them had nearly every seat taken. Conceptual plans were presented by elected officials and professional consultants, and the residents were given opportunity to ask questions and provide differing opinions on what was being suggested. Significantly, one of the main results of these and numerous other meetings about the plan resulted in a major change to the original concept. Public sentiment indicated a desire to have the municipal complex remain in its present location rather than be moved to the Little Flower property. This caused the council to direct its planners to compare both scenarios, and ultimately the council decided that keeping the complex where it is now, plus bringing the library there, was the best option, not the least of which was because the public had spoken out that this was more preferable. Thank you.
Now to the second league-generated question. Not for the league-generated ones. Rebuttals are for the questions from the audience. The second question, in redevelopment projects in town, the council is looking toward using pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, also known as annual service charges, to replace conventional tax collection. Do you support this idea and why? Do you oppose this idea and why? Mr. Mashevsky, we're starting with you.
Pilots are tax abatements meant to stimulate development by giving breaks to developers in order to promote development on land that is not attractive without the abatements. Pilots are supposed to be used as an incentive for people to build and use property that otherwise would have no chance in being used. It appears that Berkeley Heights Town Council starts off by assuming that the builders would like pilots and allows the builders to dictate the terms of the deal. They're essentially giving away the farm for 20 cents on the dollar. A study was done by the State of New Jersey Office of the State Comptroller, A. Matthew Boxter, Comptroller. It found many weaknesses in the pilot regulations, such as distortion of municipal incentives at the expense of school districts and other taxpayers, lack of transparency and centralization of documents, terms making it difficult or impossible for the public to compare, calculate the effect of, and be fully aware of the pilot arrangements, lack of clear criteria and or processes for the pilot. Schools and taxpayers are not involved adequately in the abatement decision-making process. Municipalities misuse redevelopment and failed to address community needs or bring appropriate improvement. In my studying of the way Gene Kingsley and the current council is pushing forward with these pilot programs, every single one of the state warnings are true for Berkeley Heights. The schools receive zero taxes, at least in the ones I've seen, and brand new condos may be paying 1/5 of the taxes that condos currently on the market, most likely driving down the value of any existing condos. Obtaining documents on exactly what is going on with the pilot deals that are being done has been tedious work and difficult at best to understand what, if any, is the benefit of the town. Documentation on the criteria for choosing these pilots in Berkeley Heights does not only appear to be weak, but non-existing. Our schools don't appear to be directly involved with the pilot negotiations. On the top of that, the current council are not doing a responsibility because the primary...
All right, Mr. Mishevsky, thank you very much.
Okay, no cost-benefit analysis. Thank you.
Mr. Medeiros, next, please.
Pilots enable investment which otherwise might not happen and which can improve the appeal of the township and accrue revenues to the township's benefit. I support their use, but I would insist on 3 conditions. That the pilot is carefully negotiated to favor the township, not the developer. That the township makes the most of the windfall that comes as a result. The township must be transparent. Thirdly, the township must be transparent about how it plans to spend the windfall. Development the pilots enable can add value to our township, but can also tax its resources and infrastructure. And the leadership negotiating and approving a pilot must ensure that it receives sufficient revenues and that additional revenues it receives that don't go to the county nor the schools are used to offset the known and potential negative impacts while we enable the benefits. Be those impacts roads that need paving, street lights and stop signs that need to be added, or police protection that needs to be increased. And then we need to be very public about how those funds will be applied and ensure that the entire community is on board with the trade-off that has been struck.
Thank you. Ms. Pogue.
Thank you. So yes, it's a financial tool for the developers, and I think that the concern with using pilots is to make sure that it's being used properly for the needs of the township. The township would get 95% of the funds, none going to the schools and only 5% going to the county. So what my concern would be is what happens if school-age children move in, what happens to the infrastructure. You know, there are questions that I can't even answer because I don't know the information or what they're thinking about that. So as a taxpayer, I am concerned that some of the issues are not being discussed, and then that goes back to some of the transparency. So I was at a meeting where we're not worried, it's not going to impact the schools, it's not going to impact the infrastructure, but with 2 different projects currently being out for pilot, I do have concerns for that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sincaglia.
Yeah, a very comprehensive overview of the pilot for the Kings redevelopment project was made on July 18th at a council meeting that I attended. It was quite clear that the pilot for this property represented a much better deal for the township and its taxpayers. Now, for one thing, the pilot requires that Union County receive just 5% of the annual service charge. If you look at your most recent tax bill, you'll see that about 25% of your taxes that you pay are going to Union County, whereas the township gets about 17%. By state law, the developer's profit is restricted, and if there are any excess profits, those are paid to the township. Additionally, once the pilot is established, the developer cannot later file a tax appeal. Now, over the years, as economic conditions changed, there were instances where the township's tax base was reduced. due to significant successful tax appeals by some of our largest taxpayers, particularly Lucent. This had the effect of raising everyone else's taxes, even if no new taxes were being levied. This had an impact on both the township and the school district. And incidentally, if there isn't a pilot, the school district will not receive any additional funds from these new properties. The school district's taxes are expressly controlled by the cap law. However, with a pilot, the township could decide to provide some of the additional revenue to the school district in the event that the new developments were causing an impact on the schools that could not be managed within the confines of the school's regular budget. And I can assure you that within the next 3 years, should there be a circumstance where new development creates a strain on the school district, I will certainly be asking us to consider providing some relief to the school district. So in summation, I see the pilots as favorable to the community, but each one has to be analyzed on its own. Based on what I saw for the Kings project, it seems that this is a better arrangement for us as homeowners and taxpayers.
Thank you. Mrs. Kingsley.
Okay. I fully support the use of pilots because it benefits our town financially and helps us maintain development control and affordability for residents of all ages. Pilots are not backroom deals, and those who say that simply do not understand the complexity of affordable housing or municipal redevelopment. There are distinct advantages to the strategic use of pilots, and for Berkeley Heights, it allows the town to control the density and quality of a project while meeting the affordable housing demands required by the state of New Jersey. They allow 95% of the monies to come directly to the town, rather than 25% going to the county or other recipients. That means we can protect the small town feel and maintain the aesthetics and quality of construction our property values demand. There is no such thing as a free lunch, particularly when dealing with developers. If we don't support a pilot, one of two things will happen. First, we would be facing a project with much greater density, or secondly, developers could build cheap projects with lesser aesthetics and off-site amenities. In order to be eligible to receive a pilot, each project must go through a rigorous financial analysis proving the project could not be built absent the pilot. For example, the developer of the 100 Locust Avenue project initially requested a development of 300 market rate units and large monolithic structures. After several months of negotiations, we were able to reach an agreement on a revised plan that calls for 196 age-restricted units in 2 smaller buildings. This better fits with the neighborhood and includes off-site amenities such as a developer-funded traffic light at Locust and Schneider. The former King site was first presented to the town in a 4-story, 180-unit building with lower quality construction. The approved plan consists of a 3-story, 150-unit development with interior parking and much higher quality construction. The builder is also responsible for making Sherman Avenue streetscape improvements. There is no doubt that a court or special master would have compelled the township to accept either higher density or lower grade construction of these projects if the township had not agreed for the use of a pilot. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now time for the submitted questions. I'd like to remind you that questions must be related to issues and not personalities. All candidates will have the opportunity to answer each question. A rebuttal from the other candidates will be permitted but not required. The first question is, please share what specific skills, qualifications, and experience that make you the best candidate. Mr. Medeiros, we're starting with you.
I'm sorry.
Specific skills, please share what specific skills, qualifications, and experience make you the best candidate.
I'd say the skills that make me most, I won't say the best candidate, but I think a viable candidate, one that I think could sustain, could participate well with the community, with the township council. My ability to listen, my willingness to work hard, as I mentioned earlier, my experience in working with people and to achieve results working with people. I don't think that township governance is something that you train for, nor that you need to come with experience to. I think it's something that you can bring a common sense to and accomplish effectively. I think that my background is sufficient to enable me to learn, to participate and work with my peers on the council to achieve good results.
Thank you. Mrs. Pogue?
Yes, thank you. So yes, I'm not politically savvy, as I've already told you, but I am so passionate about whatever project I take on. Whenever I start something new, I am 100%, and I continue that through the term of whatever I'm committed to. So, like Mr. Medeiros, I do not think you need to know about the town council in order to serve on the town council, because it's a learning experience and there are experts that are surrounding you that can help you navigate through the system of how it all works. I'm intelligent, I'm a lifelong learner, and I think I would serve very well.
Thank you. Mr. Sincaglia.
I would have to say that, I've been in the public eye and having to do things in public probably since the early 80s when I became a business administrator. And my responsibility was a juggling act. There were so many responsibilities in terms of running a district business office. Basically, I was responsible for everything other than the direct instruction of pupils. That experience served me well. You really had to prioritize things. There was never enough time. And back then, I was lucky all we had was a calculator. I had to be a listener. I had to be a listener from listening to my teachers, listening to my administrators for what they wanted and how we had to balance the needs of what they wanted with the ability of what the community could pay and what we were allowed to raise in taxes through various state laws and regulations. So I think that it's my financial and business background acumen that I bring to the council that would be a benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Kingsley?
Thank you. The issues that affect this town council are complex. Since serving for the last 6 years, I've been challenged. And I think when I first ran 6 years ago, I thought that I had the skills and it would be, but it's not easy. Managing affordable housing, managing redevelopment. We are responsible for a $19 million budget, and it has a 2% cap. We have labor unions we have to negotiate. This is tough stuff, and this is your investment that we're protecting. It takes people that have good fiscal responsibility, know how to motivate others, know how to sharpen a pencil, know how to come up with a strategic plan, know how to develop a vision, and know how to work to deliver it. And you have to understand the job you're stepping up for. And I think I have the experience, and I think I've proven that I've done that.
Thank you. Mr. Mashevsky?
A political monopoly is never a good thing, and that's what we have right now in Berkeley Heights. The council needs someone like me willing to put the work needed to just have a different voice on the council. I'm the hardest worker by far. If you've followed any of my campaigns, I've worked harder than anyone up here. I'm the only fiscal conservative. I put myself out there and open. I'm willing to take criticism when I'm wrong. Understand the legalities and what's legal to talk about behind closed doors and not, and how to Oprah documents and how to access these documents. I've been following the town for about 1.5 years. I'm going through documents at a very deep level, and I believe I'm one that can do that and be the voice that the people need, and not just another cog in the political monopoly.
Okay, thank you. Second question. What steps would you take to revitalize the downtown? Mrs. Pogue, you're first.
Oh, great. So the downtown, as I said in my opening statement, it does pain me to see so many empty storefronts. And one thing that Alvar and I have talked about is connecting all the stakeholders, not just small pockets of people. And we talked about a special improvement district that other towns have utilized, and it's gone very well. It's really important to include all kinds of people when you're talking about how to make the town better. And I've heard, and again, it's hearsay from other people maybe, but the planning task force doesn't meet as much as a planning task force should meet. And I don't consider that long-term planning. So a private-public partnership to revitalize the downtown and also fix the sports fields and paths.
Thank you. Mr. Sincaglia.
There have been a number of improvements made to the downtown area in the past few years, such as our street lighting, our sidewalk pavers, and banners. It's become a much more attractive area. I think what we have to do is to make sure there's not existing impediments to potential and current business owners that impact their ability to attract more customers. Now, obviously, the sustainability of that business and the economy are going to be the main factors in whether a business is going to thrive or not. But whatever the town can do to enhance their ability to succeed needs to be explored. And I think that we had a couple of things that have happened recently. We've had Restaurant Week. We've got the tree lighting winter walk. We have the street fair. Those are things that bring people out there and bring people in contact with our businesses so that they use the businesses. And I think that we need to see whatever we can do. And again, if there are impediments, whether it be parking or anything else that we can modify without jeopardizing safety, we need to take a look at them to help the businesses. Mr.
Mashevsky.
Gene Kingsley's record is horrendous on the downtown beautification. She ran about 6 years ago.
Excuse me, the question says, what steps would you take to revitalize the downtown? What would you do to revitalize it?
I am getting there.
Okay.
Improving the downtown for 6 years and founder of the Downtown Beautification Committee. I don't think that our downtown looks very good right now, so the 6 years has been a failure. What I would do is I would definitely try to limit these, the traffic in the condos. Gene Kingsley loves condos. He wants more of them in our downtown. I would work better with the businesses and not force personal standards on them, and the taxes are too high and are hurting our businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Medeiros, sorry.
Thank you. I would piggyback on what Susan said earlier about the frequent and regular meetings. So we talked about a special improvement district, which would be a private-public partnership comprised of landlords, business owners, community members, sponsored by the township, meeting regularly and frequently, keeping minutes and action items, and genuinely adopting the recommendations. So something a little bit more proactive than committee meetings or the meetings that we've had.
Okay, thank you. The next question.
I didn't answer.
You were right. Sorry. What else is there? But thank you. Ms. Kingsley,
Okay.
as you should.
Berkeley Heights has a small special town feel, and we've been determined to preserve that. So here's some of the things that have happened in the last 6 years. We have a revitalized Veterans Memorial Park. We have a clock at Peppertown Park. There's been upgrades to the Springfield Avenue streetscape, seasonal banners. In the works is an improvement to Peppertown Park. We've negotiated to have Sherman Avenue streetscape enhanced, and soon we're going to have a modern municipal complex. Working and developing the Downtown Beautification Committee, we adopted a municipal code, Article 19. That put in much more tightened standards and streetscape things for buildings to go on in downtown. It's easy to ask for a special improvement district, but the bulk of our buildings in town are owned by 4 different property owners. And in order to become a special improvement district, you need their participation. And I have met with the landlords, and I have met with the businesses, and they are not interested in that. And so we are working collectively with them and the chamber and the tenants to come up with other alternatives and options for fixing the streetscape in this town.
Thank you. Go ahead.
No,
You
it's
can
fine.
finish. Sorry. Go ahead. You have anything more to say or no? I'm sorry, I cut you off. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I've got too many cards from the audience up here, and I'm trying to organize them. Okay. You can rebut. Yes, Mr. Remember, it's about issues.
Yes,
Okay.
I just want to
Thank you.
rebut what
Yes.
Gene Kingsley has said. Gene Kingsley is
sure
the
you
founder
do.
of the Downtown Beautification Committee, has done a horrendous job with our downtown. Our downtown looks worse than ever, record vacancies. The streets and sidewalks look a mess. There's a mishmash of buildings, mishmash of sidewalk structures. She has not completed the charter that she started 6 years ago and has not even addressed any of the problems, yet she's asking for a third term. A third term. She had 6 years. She did not complete what she's set out to do, and that was her main running point. I don't think she deserves
Okay, thank you. Are there anyone else who'd like to say anything more about revitalizing the downtown? All right, on to the next question. Apparently, this is important. The league has a project here that I don't know what's happening in Berkeley Heights. I came here, drove up from Somerset County, so I have no idea of the issues surrounding the town. But apparently, this is a big thing here, so I have to ask the next question, because it's a couple of times. What will you do to improve the safety of pedestrians in town? Apparently, that's a big issue. And I have Mr. Sincaglia, you're first.
Okay, this is the first time I've heard this come up, but I think that, we have, in terms of our school crossing, I don't know there's ever been an incident. I think that the police department and the crossing guards handle things very well. The traffic light situations, you know, we have more modern traffic lights now than we had before. They've got pedestrian signage on them. What I would like to see perhaps is the countdown arrangement that we see on a lot of pedestrian things now. That might be one thing. However, we don't necessarily have control of that because where the traffic lights are on county roads, and it's up to the county to do that. So to me, that would be one thing I think that we could do that could help pedestrian safety. And the other thing would be, you know, making sure that, to the extent that we can, making sure our sidewalks are safe.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Okay, thank you. I think one of the most important things for pedestrian safety is sidewalks. And I think one of the things that are lacking in our town is the quality of our sidewalks. And that is why I have been working to launch the project called Safe Routes to School, which is a statewide initiative that has funds available for sidewalk enhancements. Working collectively with the Board of Education, we are working on a plan to apply for a grant this year that would hopefully give us a win in a grant for hundreds of thousands of dollars where we could absolutely tackle this issue, because we need to have more places for people to walk where the sidewalks are safe and not cracked, and where they can push a stroller or they can jog and stay off the main thoroughfares. So hopefully, as this project moves forward, we will have success, and we will not be putting the burden on us exclusively. We'll be sharing it by obtaining grant money.
Mr. Mashevsky?
Yeah, right now, we're moving forward. The traffic is a big issue, I think. And moving forward, we're going to have major changes that's going to, I believe, kill our small-town field and cause actually safety issues. The town council is moving forward with pushing through projects at a rapid pace. There's about 10 projects. I don't know if that's the exact number, but there's a bunch of Kingsley's condos and the municipal building that's going through right now, and plus the 310-story
Excuse me,
apartment buildings.
the questions about the improving the safety of pedestrians,
I'm
okay?
getting
Just,
that.
okay, and you have 30 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, 3 10-story apartment buildings that they're building, and that's already Watchung's worried about that. I would say no to any project that did not have a traffic study already attached to it and say this is not going to cause an issue. The traffic, there's no way that they can do a real traffic study with all these projects going on in the same place, and it's going to be dangerous, and it's going to ruin our small town feel.
Mr. Medeiros?
Thanks, and Ann, I would say that your appreciation of the urgency of this is spot on. I've actually spoken to a number of people in town. I spoke to a business person whose primary concern was that she felt at risk crossing Springfield Avenue to get to work every day. I've spoken to people that get off our commuter buses and are scared and have a difficulty crossing the streets on, again, Springfield Avenue because it's dark and nobody stops. I think what it starts with is an emphasis and a priority on safety. And it means, it includes clearly marking the streets, clearly marking the crosswalks, I should say, clearly lighting them. I think our neighboring town, New Providence, has done an amazing job at a very low cost. I mean, the flags that they use to set up crosswalks is a great idea that comes at an inexpensive price, and it's a good way to highlight the fact that there's a crossing there. So I think there's a lot that we could do much better to improve the safety of traffic crossing.
Thank you. Mrs. Pogue?
So I run through the streets of Berkeley Heights. I walk through the streets of Berkeley Heights with my dog, and I have to cross Park Avenue, and there's a crosswalk with the sign that says stop for pedestrians, and I'll stand in the crosswalk and hold my hand up, and cars are still whizzing back and forth. So, you know, my friend who lives in Massachusetts, you step in the crosswalk, cars stop on a dime. So I don't know if part of it is educating the public about pedestrian crosswalks. The other thing, though, about walking in town, I mean, I've been here 23 years, and the sidewalks have always been askew and uneven. The roads are in terrible condition. I have twisted my ankle a few times, not seriously, but twisted my ankle a few times stepping in ruts and potholes throughout the town. So that, to me, is a safety issue as well. If you can't just walk your dog without worrying about looking down the entire time, that's a safety issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What would you do to support township volunteers, such as the rescue squad and the fire department? We begin with Mrs. Kingsley.
Sure.
I think.
I'm a huge advocate of all of our volunteers in town because they are really the backbone of our community and what makes us successful. I have always volunteered and given back to this community. I've been a member of many organizations, and my daughter is a current member of the rescue squad. I support our first responders. They come forward and work with us every year on the council. They come up with capital requests, and we work our best to always make sure that they have what they need to not only do their job efficiently, but to be safe, because safety is always at the first and forefront whenever it comes to taking care of our first responders or any employee in town.
Mr. Mashevsky? Supporting?
Yeah, I just want to say that Jean Kingsley definitely applaud her volunteerism. She does a great job, and I think she should definitely be applauded for that. For volunteers, I support volunteers, and I believe that in Berkeley Heights, we need to take the time to thank the volunteers. It's a hard job, and I think there's a bunch of different types of volunteers, and we have wonderful organizations throughout. And I think what's going on right now as far as the volunteerism is great, and I would try to keep that up. So I think this is something that the town is currently doing correct. I think it should be a little bit more inclusive and not allow anybody into the volunteers and maybe not be as controlled by mayor appointees. But that's about it. Thank you.
Mr. Medeiros?
I, too, am a huge advocate of volunteering, and I encourage everybody to do I think it's a civic duty, really. Susan and I had an opportunity to meet with the rescue squad and the fire department in this town, and I can't think of a group of people who are more heroic, more dedicated, and true heroes in this town that we should honor and encourage at each and every opportunity. And I would encourage everyone to consider participating in those two organizations to the extent that they can. It's just great people that we were very pleased and honored to meet with.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes, so to piggyback, we like to piggyback a lot. So to piggyback on Alvaro, it was a great event. We did both in 1 week. We were Monday night at the rescue squad, and we got to talk with and listen to some of their concerns. And one of their big concerns is not enough volunteers, which can be scary. I know one of my friends just told me she moved to a town where there was not a volunteer fire and rescue squad, but a full-time. So I know that I asked them a question, so what happens? You get the call, you have to get to the firehouse, you have to get to the rescue squad, and then you go off. So that, that can be a little scary sometimes. But they are our hometown heroes, and I loved how Alvaro said to them right there, you guys are our hometown heroes. And I know we have our hometown hero banners, but, our daily hometown heroes. So thank goodness for them. And working at the school, I know that when we call and they get there, we're so grateful that they have gotten there. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in reaching out to them to try. I'm kind of encouraging my own husband to get out there and do a turn because we need them.
Thank you. Mr. Sincaglia?
I think, like everybody up here, I think we've got a great fire department, a great rescue squad, and we can't thank those people enough for devoting the time and the effort and risking sometimes themselves to be out there for us. Volunteerism is one of the things that makes Berkeley Heights what it is. And it's those two organizations, but it's also other things. It's the PTOs, it's the various school organizations, it's the various committees, the Veterans Committee that set up a beautiful park for us, which all came in through private donations. We didn't have to pay anything for it. Anything we can do to support those people is something we need to think about. We take care of their training. If they need to go to special seminars, EMT training, the town picks up the cost for that. And we've tried to provide them with the equipment we need, including we just provided them with a beautiful new fire engine that I don't even want to tell you what it cost, but it was something needed, and it's something that the town bonded for so they could have it.
Thank you. Next question. Where do you stand on Chapter 78, which mandates employee contributions to health care? We're starting with Mr. Mashevsky.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah. Where do you stand on Chapter 78, which mandates employee contribution on health care? I have quite a number of things about Chapter 78. Where do you stand? What is your position on employee benefits, specifically Chapter 78?
Employees need benefits. I don't know what else there is to say about that. Is that a town council decision? I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it. It's not something I'm familiar with.
I'm sure it must be related to township employees, right?
If
And their
they seem to
contributions
deserve,
to health
healthcare.
care,
Yeah,
right?
I think they would deserve to get health care.
All right. Mr. Medeiros?
I'm also less familiar with that rule, but I would say that certainly in my experience as an employee of a number of companies, that's always been a means of controlling costs. I think the township bears a substantial amount of cost for the health care of its employees, as you pointed out, and that is something that should be considered. Contributions to, from my personal perspective, contributions to health care insurance ensure that there is attention paid to the costs and to the utilization of the services, and so I would support it.
Mrs. Pogue.
So it's always a great day when you learn something new, and I thought Chapter 78 was only about teachers and firefighters. So I learned something new tonight. I didn't realize the township employees did pay into Chapter 78. So if you're not familiar with Chapter 78, I know from my own profession, many of our people are earning less now than they were when Chapter 78 came into play, which is not great for morale, but I really can't speak to it on the township level because I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sincaglia?
Okay, Chapter 78 is a state law that mandated for public employees contributions to their health insurance. Here before that, there was a mixed bag of what went on all over in school districts and municipalities. What this did is it mandated contributions. In many cases, employees were paying absolutely nothing for their health benefits, unlike what exists in the private sector. Those of you who work in the private sector understand what you have to pay and what your deductibles are. Generally speaking, the plans that public employees have are very rich. I happen to benefit from one as a former school employee. But for years, there was zero contribution paid, and it was something that municipalities and school districts have been able to save money and do other things to serve their clients better because they're not paying those very high premiums now that the employees are cost sharing for at least part of them.
Mrs. Kingsley.
Thank you, John. And just to mirror that, Chapter 78 was the law that was put into books, and it is something that could potentially be sunsetted in the near future. And I believe that the public employees should mimic that of the private employees, and that it's only fiscally responsible that they too co-pay for a piece of their medical benefits. While I know it's wonderful that one of the aspects of working as a public employee is the quality benefits that you have, I think it's unrealistic in this day and age to expect 100% of that cost to be on the back of the taxpayer, and it only makes sense that it mirrors what happens in the own taxpayer's job and work environment.
Thank you.
I'd like to rebut.
Of course.
So as a councilman, you have a learning period, and you get things presented. We're caught, I guess, the people who haven't been on the council, you get caught off guard when you hear something like this 78. But I would learn about it, and I'd figure it out. But I also believe, I agree with Jean, that we should definitely not have, I think we need to get back into having something that's more of aligned with the private sector.
Anyone else care to?
Can
Go
I
ahead,
say
Mrs.
one
Pogue.
thing?
Of course.
Just from my own perspective, I think when you're in the private industry, what people forget is you have an unlimited ability to earn money. And when you're in a public employee, your salary is set. Doesn't matter how great you are, how hard you work, your salary is set. So when people are making less money each year for working as hard as everybody else, that's just tough to take sometimes. So I think you need to put it in perspective that it's very hard to compare public and private employees because it's not the same. It's apples and oranges.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Sincaglia.
when you talk about comparing public and private salaries, we're not necessarily talking about the Wall Street executives who might be making 6 and 7 figures. We're also talking about people in other professions who might be making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, very comparable to what some of our entry-level teachers make. Those people are paying very heavy premiums on their private insurance that they get through their employer, if they're getting it at all. So to throw that out there as a comparison, I don't think is fair. Yeah, maybe with the high-paid executives it is, but not in terms of what the regular workforce is.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, next question. Under the master plan, the library will be moved to the top floor of the municipal building where it will be virtually invisible. Do you approve of this relocation? And if not, what will you do to change it? Mr. Medeiros, we're first with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess my reaction to that is that I think that what appeals to the library, in my experience, especially with children and with senior citizens, is how accessible the library has been historically. I remember going into the library when my children were younger, and it was literally packed with students. My worry would be that the lesser accessibility to the at street level to the town to students would be a detriment. So I would not support it.
Thank you. Mrs. Pogue?
I'm going to piggyback again. Children and senior citizens need to have good accessibility to the library. The library is a hub of our community, and having it on a top floor doesn't seem like really great long-term planning to me. What would I do about it? I don't know if there can be anything done. The building is planned, and the project is starting, and I'm not sure if that is something that can be changed.
Mr. Sincaglia?
I think the fact that, we're replacing a library that we've had for years that we know is inadequate, despite the Herculean efforts of the library staff. We had a building there that really is terrible. Terrible for meetings, terrible for access. We're going to have a first-rate library arrangement. It's be access through an elevator. It'll be open. You'll be able to be there at other times and not interfere with other activities. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. And also with respect to the seniors, one of the things we're doing is the senior room is going to be on the ground floor so that they have easy access for their meetings and activities. They want to use the library. There's an elevator that'll get them there. I just think that if you look at the totality of what we're going to have, it is so much better than what exists now that I think we'll all be very pleased when it's finished.
Thank you. Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes, thank you. It's just a correction. It's not the master plan. Somebody's talking about the redevelopment plan as to
Thank
where the
you.
library is addressed. What we're getting from this whole building is a new state-of-the-art library. This building has been designed by an architect whose expertise is how to design public libraries. This new space has ample space for children, a separate space for teens, places for seniors, multiple meeting rooms, new technology. It is exactly what this community needs and, quite frankly, what this community deserves. So I think we have to ultimately trust the architect that putting it on the third floor is not going to be inconvenient, because ultimately the people are going to get so much more of what they need, and we should be happy that we can make it all fit in one location.
Mr. Mashevsky?
Well, the seniors were mentioned, and first of all, the seniors were placed in the basement, and now they had to come in about 100-fold to come in to get moved to the base floor. But you're going to have the same issue with putting the library, saying seniors are going to go to the library. What if there was ever a fire? These seniors that you're talking about cannot go down a flight of stairs, and the elevators are not safe during a fire. That's probably a safety issue, and that doesn't sound good to me. I'm against the current plans and the extreme costs of the building in the first place. What is being proposed for this $31 million would surely disappoint most. The library is the same size as our current one, and I don't see why we couldn't have kept there. It's farther away from the schools. It's not an ideal location. It's definitely less convenient, and it's the same size. We could have done better upgrading our current school than spending $31 million on this new municipal building.
Thank you. Any rebut? All right, the next question then. The annual operating budget of the town cannot increase by greater than 2%. Knowing that there is an annual cap on the operating budget, can you share your thoughts on what operating expenses you would increase and decrease, and how? Again, we're talking about the annual operating budget not increasing greater than 2%. And what would you do to increase or decrease things in the budget? Mrs. Pogue, we're starting with you.
So budgeting is all about priorities, and I've learned how to budget for my home, my classroom, to send my children to college, negotiating. So the same kind of process takes place at the town level, and I would go to the experts that are handling budgeting. But I think there's not a lot of room. You have to pay what comes in goes out. Well, you have to pay your employees. You have to pay what you need to pay for. So I don't know if there's a lot of room for movement.
Thank you. Mr. Sincaglia.
Well, as Ms. Pogue said, there's, you start off with, okay, what kind of services do you want? You have to take care of your police department. You have to take care of your DPW, your township employees. Those aren't options. Those are services that need to be provided. You have to make sure you have insurance. You have to cover your payroll costs for Social Security, for the pension payments we have to make to the state. There's very little opportunity and very little room for discretionary spending. That has to be scrutinized very carefully because, again, there aren't any options. Again, that's something I had to live with. I had to live with caps of various types, particularly the 2% cap. I had to review budgets, and people had to stay within the 2% cap or even get it lower. Proud to say that at the school district, we were often even under the cap and provided the essential services that our kids needed. So you have to scrutinize things carefully, but again, there isn't a lot of wiggle room because most of the stuff essentially is mandated and you can't do anything about it unless you want to reduce services.
Mrs. Kingsley.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback what John said, you know, we have an operating budget of about $19 million, of which $16.5 million of that 19 is totally non-discretionary, covering fixed costs. We have about $2.2 million, which I would call as a fixed operating, which is audit fees, legal fees, planning board fees, and the like, and that leaves about $300,000 of pure discretionary costs. So the question every year is, how do we not cut services and keep the services where we need them to be? And that's where we have to look for alternate sources of funding and shared services. And what we've been working since I got here is exactly doing that. We're partnering with the county, we're partnering with the Board of Ed, we're partnering with businesses, and we're looking for different ways to maintain services without increasing costs.
Mr. Mashevsky.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that the option to get HBO, for example, is a discretional option. But once you sign the contract, that's a non-discretionary cost. So there is choices being made, and they make it sound like there's no wiggle room in this. New hires are an example. This year we had 2 new hires. Once they're on the books, that's a non-discretionary cost. The big thing, though, is that it goes into this is the payment, the debt service that gets paid. This year they just went for $31 million of new debt, more than doubling our town's debt. Now, while this is a capital expenditure, every year you have to pay off that debt and the interest. And that comes out of that'll come out of that budget. So, and that's exempt from the cap. So you can easily cut taxes, and they're bloating the figures as far as the revenues and the expenditures. I took a look at it, and without cutting any services whatsoever, we can have tax reductions in this town. But basically, Gene Kingsley has said yes to every line item this year, and that's not the way to do it.
Mr. Medeiros.
I'm going to agree with the people to my right here that there is very little movement that you could make in a budget. I think that certainly it is incumbent upon every member of town government to be very fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money. But quite frankly, the reality is that it's very difficult to reduce taxes without cutting services significantly. I agree that there should be alternative forms of identifying funding. Grants is a very good way. I commend my partner Susan and her achievement in writing grants, and I would look to expand that. I also think that, contrary to what Tom just said, it is valuable to invest in a town. It's like investing in your business. If you don't do it, it's a long-term commitment to the township. I think it's worthwhile to invest in a town.
Thank you.
Can I
Of course. Rebut?
I just
Sure.
want to correct the record. We have not taken on $31 million in debt this year. We passed an ordinance that would allow us to take on debt to fund the redevelopment project. To date, we try to, keep our borrowings at a constant level because debt service is absolutely in the budget, and that is the payment of that. So the goal is to keep our amount of debt steady so that debt service payments are steady as to not increase our taxes. And that's why having a rolling capital plan is so critical to the overall budget process.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Sinclair.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to point out, was mentioned about getting grants. I talked to our town CFO and found out that, for example, one of the things we do every year is road work. This year we spent about $975,000 on roads. Grants paid 34% of that. Okay, that's 34% over $330,000 that didn't have to come out of local taxes, which allowed us to do more work. So we need to do that every year. Those grants are available every year. It basically paid, I understand, for about 80 to 85% of the Snyder Avenue repaving.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I don't understand how approving $31 million of debt is keeping that steady. This is doubling the town's debt, and the debt payment on that is not keeping the debt steady. In fact, instead of letting debt roll off naturally, every year Gene Kingsley ends up raising and re-upping into the debt. In addition, I'm not against spending. I'm against waste. So my issue is not against spending on the things that are valuable to the town. It's against wasting money on luxury items.
Thank you. All right. I've got to call a stop to the end of the questions from the audience. I'd like to thank you for your questions. If we didn't get to them, the only reason is we didn't have enough time. I'm sure the candidates will stay around if you have questions for them after their closing statements. We will now have the candidates' closing statements, beginning with Mrs. Pogue.
Thank you. So I threw my hat into the arena and became a Democratic candidate for town council, soon to be joined by Alvaro Medeiros. At the first meeting, I suggested our campaign colors be purple, because purple is what happens when blue and red are put together. I believe I'm quoting last year's Democratic candidate, who was most certainly quoting someone else when he said, "There's not a Democratic or Republican way to fix a pothole." There's not, I'm sorry, they have, as I talk to residents, they have embraced the message that the purple brings. Our slogan is change we can agree on, and it reinforces this message of inclusiveness. According to Webster's dictionary, a community is an interacting population of various kinds of individuals in a common location. The Berkeley Heights community is a group of people with diverse interests, characteristics, personal histories, economic situations, and political interests. And we all want the same thing: continued evolution and improvement of our common location. But change can only come when all residents are reflected in the leadership of the group. The town council must be more reflective of our diverse community. In the classroom, each and every year, I create a brand new community from a group of diverse interests, characteristics, talents, and skills. We become a community of learners that respect each other, embrace each other's ideas and thoughts, and learn to talk with and listen to each other. When the community works together and everyone feels successful, it is because each member of the community has an opportunity to feel valued and have his or her ideas and opinions respected and validated through an arena of civil discourse. Linda Ellerby said, "What I like most about change is that it is a synonym for hope. If you are taking a risk, what you are saying is, I believe in tomorrow and I want to be part of it. Join Alvaro and me on this journey and be part of the change that we can all agree on. Embrace the hope for a better tomorrow here in Berkeley Heights. Be purple with us and vote column A on November 7th.
Mr. Medeiros?
This evening has been an interesting experience for me. It's my first time, as has been the nearly 6 months since Susan and I launched our campaign. I've never had the opportunity to engage with as many people in broad discussions about the issues affecting our town and the possibilities of improving it. I've particularly enjoyed meeting so many people during my neighborhood walks, some people of whom I've previously met, but most of what I've never met at all, and a lot with whom I don't have much in common. But they were grateful to be contacted, and we all share one thing in common, which is the community of neighbors that comprises Berkeley Heights. We all want to feel that our investment in living here, whether recent arrival or over many decades, whatever the size or age of our home and property, will remain safe and secure, and that we, our children, friends and neighbors, our families and extended families, will continue to enjoy the quiet, peaceful, prosperous town that attracted us here in the first place. I hope to be able to serve on the Berkeley Heights Town Council to help make that a certainty. Meanwhile, I congratulate my fellow citizens for a spirited discussion tonight and wish them the very best. I urge everyone here to come and vote on November 7th, and please urge everyone that you know that is able to also come and vote and exercise the right to decide who will lead your town, your county, and state, and who will represent you in Congress. Finally, I ask for your vote for Susan and me. Column A, Pogue and Medeiros. Vote for town council. Vote for a change that you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mashevsky?
Firstly, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and taking the time to get involved in Berkeley Heights local politics. Part of my goal with running for council is getting people more involved with what's going on. In my opinion, the more informed the residents of Berkeley Heights are and the more they get involved in the decision-making, the better off we are regardless of political affiliation. I've taken steps to move us in the right direction and have been an advocate for open government. For those who believe that taxes are either the biggest issue in Berkeley Heights or at least one of them, I am the only fiscal conservative running. I am the only candidate who will look closely at spending and put the time and hard work to right this ship. Nobody else on this stage is going to do that. If tax relief is important to you, then I'm clearly your candidate. I believe Jean Kingsley is a really great person, as I discussed. I think her volunteerism is something to be admired, but her record as a council member does not warrant a third term. Jean Kingsley's entire campaign back in 2012 was the beautification of downtown and zero-based budgeting. Jean Kingsley's campaign slogan is vision, leadership, results. Jean clearly has the luxurious and costly vision for Berkeley Heights. However, I see little evidence in the leadership and certainly lacking in the results. I believe there's another major issue for Berkeley Heights is the traffic. If you want our town to be unrecognizable from the way it is now, with tons of traffic and condos, by all means vote for the incumbents. Condos and traffic are a perfect combo to destroy the small town field. Under John Sincaglia's tenure on the Board of Education, the average cost per student went up almost $1,000 every year, almost 5 times the rate of inflation. And now it stands at well over double the amount it was when he was elected. No wonder John thinks that all this new debt for a town of just 13,000 people is somehow responsible. After personally speaking to thousands of people in Berkeley Heights, it is clear that most feel that this town is not any better off than it was 6 years ago, even though we are paying nearly 30% more in property tax. They also don't like that the town council went against the will of the
Thank you very
residents
much.
and disallowed them a
Mr.
vote
Mashevsky,
on
thank you. Mrs. Kingsley, you're next.
Thank you to the League for supporting this debate and to the participants, audience, and those watching at home. Debates and other forums like this are an important part of our democratic process, and I'm happy to have had the opportunity like this to be here and talk to you and answer your questions and concerns. Those who know me or have worked with me would describe me as a passionate person, passionate about my family, our community, and most of all, doing what's right for all people and not just a few. Effective leadership on the council has a lot to do with making sure that we have the right skills to get the job done. During my 6 years in office, I've been challenged because the issues that this town faces are complex. The fact that I have 25 years' experience as a finance professional, I'm a CPA, has served me well. The way I approach every project or decision is with the spirit of teamwork, to gather the facts, to require due diligence in its financial planning, its sustainability, and how it will be paid for. Ideas without a financial plan cannot come to fruition. To suggest or even hope that they will, it's just naive. My skill set and work ethic make sure that the creative process goes hand in hand with the financial process. When you elected me, I told you I was committed to building the future of Berkeley Heights with you. We have worked hard to make smart, strategic investments, and through our collaborative efforts with our residents, volunteers, and community stakeholders, we have delivered significant improvements. Just take a look around town. You see improvements to parks, playgrounds, playing fields, infrastructure, services, and they're only going to get better in the next 3 years. We're not done, and we've done this without burdening the taxpayer. This election is important. It's critical to elect council members with the right skills and experience to continue our forward momentum. Our homes are one of the largest investments we make in our lifetimes, and it's critical to protect those property values. Preserving quality of life we have here in Berkeley Heights is essential because it affects every member of our communities. Berkeley Heights is a special place to live, and I'm deeply committed to continuing to serve all members with the passion, experience, and excellence they deserve. I'm asking you to support John and I on Tuesday, November 7th for Township Council so we can continue to build for the future of Berkeley Heights. Thank you for your support.
Mr. Sincaglia.
Again, I want to thank the League for arranging this event and the staff and students at GL for making it possible for all in the community to be able to watch this. I also want to thank all of you who are out there taking the time to be here tonight. We have a great community. New Jersey Monthly last month listed us as the 6th best town in the entire state. Now, there are over 550 towns in New Jersey. I think that's something to be quite proud of. I believe we have a great community because of our people. We have tremendous participation in our school organizations like the PTO, the Ed Foundation, the Booster Club, the Hilltop Players, the band parents. We have so many moms and dads actively involved in our recreation programs that our kids enjoy. We have volunteer initiatives and terrific support for worthy causes. Look at what Relay for Life has accomplished. How about our 2 major charitable 5K races that get great participation? We proudly recognize and honor our veterans, and we take special pride in the service that we receive from our police, our fire department, and rescue squad. We have special community events that bring us together. The Mount Carmel Festival is known far and wide. We now have a great winter walk, a street fair, and we just celebrated a most successful restaurant week. I didn't come to live here by accident. My wife and I were so impressed by what we saw in Berkeley Heights and what it offered, and we told our realtor to stop looking in other places and help us find a home here. It's one of the best decisions we've ever made. I've been involved in community activities for almost all my time here. As a school board member, I was known for always wanting to make sure the public understood what we were doing and why we were doing it. That's a hallmark of how I operate both professionally and publicly. We have things that need to get done and we have challenges to face, and I'm someone who has demonstrated that not only do I possess the skills and knowledge for these tasks, but just as importantly, I'm someone who will listen and take into consideration what you think and have to say. We're a great community. We can be even better. That's the philosophy I espoused on the school board. It's what I will bring as a member of the town council. Thank you. Please vote column B, Kingsley Sincaglia.
Thank you. I hope you all found this evening an informative one. I'd like you to tell your family and friends that they can view this forum on FiOS Channel 47 or Comcast Channel 34. It will also be on the YouTube channel GLHS TV. Also, please remember to check www.411.org for all the election information you need. I'd like to remind you to vote on Tuesday, November 7th. Thank you.